Hi, trend forecasting students. I hope you are all doing well. I wanted to check in with you today about assignment number 5. I hope it is off to a good start for you all. We are less than 2 weeks away from the deadline. So I wanted to connect with you all and kind of take the temperature, see how things are going. It is a team assignment in an environment where we are all working remotely and are separate from one another. So that can carry with it some additional dynamics to navigate. So I wanted to make sure that piece was going okay. I thought what I would also do where we are less than 2 weeks away from the deadline is to go into some of the assignment details and parameters in a little bit more detail, really kind of to anticipate any last minute questions that you might have really in advance of you having them. So I am going to take a couple of minutes to share my screen with you and walk you through assignment number 5 in a little bit more detail. So here we are in the assignment number 5 module. So you've got some overview information here that we'll go ahead and get started with. So you are now looking at the assignment number 5 overview. So basically, the objective of this assignment is to give you some practice with developing a seasonal forecast for an actual brand who carries with it a specific consumer segment, and kind of give forecasting some of the industry parameters that you would likely need to consider if you were to pursue forecasting as part of your career. Okay, so let's take a look at what you are required to do. So there are 4 primary deliverables when it comes to this assignment. The very first one is developing a written brand and market brief. So basically the point of this is to tell the viewer who this brand is that you're forecasting for. Okay, so you have an option here. You can either select a real existing brand to develop a forecast for, or you could also create a fictional one. So that is, you would develop a brand, from scratch on your own. So there's pros and cons to both of those scenarios. In choosing an existing brand, the nice thing about that is that there is a wealth of information about some of the larger brands out there that you could then use and fold into your work. Creating a brand is kind of nice because you have total creative freedom and a lot of flexibility to design the project in a way that isn't limiting. You're not working within the framework of an existing brand. In either scenario, it is really important for you to maintain the integrity of the brand, whether it's fictional or not, in terms of designing the pieces of the project in a way that show brand consistency and alignment. So it's important to get that piece right. So if you are talking about Nike, you are not going to do a forecast for evening wear, right? You want to be really consistent. That's a very kind of juvenile example of what I mean there. But I think you guys can get the idea in referring back to some of the work that you've done around branding, marketing, et cetera, in our industry. Okay, so the first piece of the written brand and market brief is the background. So you're just going to tell your audience kind of the basic information about what the brand is, a brief introduction, a little background as the title implies, etc. Then you'll move into the consumer profile, which is an opportunity for the reader to understand who this forecast is being developed for. So you'll talk about things like demographics, psychographics, and zeitgeist. So what cultural or events or current events might impact this consumer segment's purchasing decisions. Then you go into sales and merchandising section, which is asking you to talk about past sales, right? So you might think about things like what have been flops, what have been really successful top sellers, and some of the different elements that would impact final sale of the product in this assignment, and merchandising decisions. So the idea here is that information is really important in terms of generating a forecast for a specific brand, season, and consumer. So we're not talking about a macro forecast here where we would be looking at, societal or cultural shifts that will inform kind of 30,000 foot view trend forecasts, right? This is specific, right? This is a very specific business scenario that we were forecasting within. So having data information, kind of background sales and merchandising information is absolutely important in developing a forecast that is realistic to this scenario, okay? So with that information in mind, you will then develop a concept for a forecast for the coming season. So that will include, basically the deliverable there will be a concept board that will look at illustrating visually the trend story. So concept, mood, color direction, etc. And there are some specific things that you need to think about that are highlighted here, right? So a thematic title, thematic imagery, color directions with trend appropriate names and color swatches, and then of course identification of the season and category. The next thing that you will do is take that concept and think about what it would look like manifested as a product line. So what would that concept look like at market, okay? So you'll develop a fabrication and product assortment board, which will allow you to take your concept from an idea or a theme into an actual product line. So you will look at on this board at the fabrication story. So that'll look at things like materials, fabrics, textures, trims, details, and then also merchandise mix. So what actual products will be included in this product line. So the way that you can look at that is thinking about what you or someone on your team may have as a skill set. If someone is a skilled illustrator, you might think about using sketches or drawings. If that's not the case, that's totally okay. You can source technical flats online or product images online. Any of those scenarios are okay to illustrate the merchandise mix. Then you will develop a trend forecast recap. So essentially what you'll do is summarize all of the items that we just talked about, okay? So this will be a written summary of the trend story and forecast. So you'll describe it, discuss its influence, and then anything else that you think is important to understanding what the forecast portrays, the team's inspiration, the reasoning for the trend prediction, etc. You will include the scope of the project, including the season, a description of the product, the category, the product category or classification, a description of the market segment, a description of the product line and merchandise mix, the number of SKUs in the collection, how many individual styles and colorways. So some of this is new that you'll be developing in this section, and some of it you can refer back to the brand and market brief, okay? So it'll be a little bit, some of these elements may be a little bit repetitive in this particular piece of the assignment, but to leave them out in something like a written trend forecast recap would be a missed opportunity, because the trend forecast recap should really tell the whole story of the trend forecast, okay? You can also include your sources in this section as well, okay? So basically we're talking about 4 deliverables, 2 of which are very creative and visual in nature, and 2 of which are written narrative to support the trend boards, okay? So just to recap, we are talking about a written brand and market brief, a concept board, a fabric and product assortment board, and a trend forecast recap, okay? So that is essentially what is required for assignment number 5 in a nutshell. So as we move through the assignment 5 module, you'll see that there are some resources here, okay? A guide and a sample. So this is the guide. Basically what this guide is a markup on an actual project with some additional directives on how you might approach your assignment based on what is done in this project. So if you look at the red writing here, there's some little notes to you on how you might use what you're looking at to influence and inspire your own work, okay? this is a sample. So this is a sample of an actual project that was submitted for this assignment in its final form. So an important thing to remember with both the guide and the sample is that these assignments were from semesters past, okay? And so, like many courses, different instructors and different semesters will mean slight changes and tweaks to an assignment. So, if you see something in the guide or the sample that's not explicitly asked for in our assignment overview and the directions for completing assignment number 5, that is perfectly okay. If you see something in the guide or the sample that inspires you and you'd like to include it in your final project, by all means. However, you should not use the guide or the sample as a list of things that are required of you. Okay, you should always refer to the overview for that. It's those 5 instructions that you are responsible for this semester. So I hope that makes sense to you. I include the guide and the sample not to confuse you on that piece, but really just to give you some examples to look at and to inspire your own work. So let's get back into the module. Assignment teams are here. So my hope is that you have taken a look at this and gone through to see who is on your team and even started working on the assignment together. This is an area of the module right here where you can ask questions and get answers both from me and from fellow classmates. Here is information on scheduling an instructor meeting with regard to assignment number 5. So if you need to connect with me, there's some information on how to do that. And then the assignment submission. So this is an important piece that I want you to pay close attention to, okay? So here is the Dropbox. So that's where you will include your trend forecast. This is where you will submit, rather, your trend forecast project. So the way that you can do that is there's some options. You may decide to include all of the elements into one document, maybe saved as a PDF. You may also decide that you'll develop your written components separately from your visual components and submit multiple files. Either way is okay. You only need to submit 1 per team. Okay, so not every student needs to submit something. 1 per team will suffice, and everybody will be graded on that submission. Okay? The other thing to keep in mind here is that there will be a required discussion based on assignment number 5 that will be shared with the entire class. Okay? So if you open up this discussion forum page, you will see that at the same time you're submitting your final assignment number 5 on Sunday, May 3rd, you will also post just the concept board in this discussion forum, okay? So 1 post per team, again, will suffice, right? Not everybody from your team needs to show the concept board on the discussion forum. Only 1 of you can, okay? Then, by May 10th, Sunday, May 10th, you will come back to this board and be able to view each other's work, okay, and to comment. So you are required as an individual student to respond to at least 2 other teams' work, okay? So this is every individual student here, not teams responding together, but every individual student will respond to one of the team posts in the discussion forum, okay? So the team will post the concept board by Sunday, May 3rd, the same day that they'll submit it in the Dropbox. And then the entire class will have a discussion about the concept boards posted, and each individual student will comment on a minimum of 2 other students' concept board, or 2 other teams' concept boards, okay? So that is assignment number 5 in a nutshell, okay? So there is an overview for you, a guide, a sample, a listing of teams, a place to ask questions and get assistance, a Dropbox, and a discussion forum. So I hope that that all makes good sense to you and is pretty straightforward. As always, if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. Take good care, and I will see you soon.